Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for spending the evening or with me and with the rest of the guys here today. So I'm going to be talking about reducing chaos with Backstage. And just quick show of hands, who uses Backstage today? No one? Okay, so we are in the right place. So let me quickly start by introducing myself. My name is Tiago Barbosa. I'm a developer advocate at PagerDuty. Before that, I worked 10 years at Microsoft, 2 years at AWS, and then I spent a couple more years at a company in the musical industry, where I was the head of cloud and platforms. So building fun stuff that goes live in live shows actually for very large bands. And so you have my contacts here if you want to reach out, feel free to do so. One of the reasons why I'm here talking about Backstage today is because I've been working with Backstage for the last 3 years or so, and I'm currently the maintainer for the PagerDuty plugin for Backstage, actually. And so if you want to start using it, just reach out. I can help, have feature requests. GitHub is the place to go. So basically, what's kind of led us here in the first place? So we are, I assume, all building software, and we are currently all living in complex environments, building very complex software, as we already saw by what Luis was sharing earlier today. So we have like every single customer has different requirements. All of us have different requirements that we need to comply to. We are working in distributed teams, most of us. I would assume it's something that after the pandemic kind of increased. And so we have teams with different levels of expertise. I assume all rely on multiple knowledge bases in different systems and platforms that we need to know. And most of us don't have like full visibility on that. And one of the things that I always see when I talk to different customers in different organizations is the lack of good communication and alignment between teams, right? It's something that kind of brings a lot of stress into the process and kind of leads to some challenges when we kind of want to release new version of the software that we are building. And so Backstage is here to help, right? But I want to do like two disclaimers before that, right? Don't want to get your like I want to get your expectations in the right place. So Backstage is an open source tool built by Spotify and donated to CNCF. It's one of the most widely used platforms for this specific problem that they are trying to solve, but there are other tools in the market, right? So if you are and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I see people kind of approaching Backstage as okay, this is the only tool in the market, and it's actually not, right? So there are other tools that try to solve the problem, the same problem in different ways. So what you're going to see here today is not the only option. Disclaimer number 2 is that there is no single tool that can fix people and organizational problems. I guess you all know that, but it's also one of the things that I've seen customers trying to use Backstage for is, okay, we will have Backstage and everything is solved. Well, not really, right? So depends on what you're trying to solve. And so for the ones that haven't used Backstage or that don't know what Backstage is, this is basically how the Backstage team kind of defines Backstage. So they say it's an open platform for building developer portals, which means that this is something that is highly customizable. You can bring your own integrations in, but you need to maintain as well, right? So it's open source. It's something that you run yourself. There are companies out there running Backstage as a service, like Rody, for instance, and they kind of take care of that perspective for you. But it's something that usually you run by yourself. And I would like to mention some of the like categories or things that or features that Backstage brings, and these are like probably the 4 main capabilities that I see kind of bringing value to teams. building software. So the first one is around service catalog. So basically, Backstage provides you with service catalog capabilities that will allow you and your teams to have like easy service discoverability, which means that you have like a one place that every single developer in the organization goes to kind of find information about all the services that you and other teams are building. The second point here is about being self-service. One of the main challenges that I see in organizations like mine, like PagerDuty, that is growing very fast, is you will have new people joining the teams all the time. And typically you have the knowledge about specific services just in 2 or 3 engineers that have been in the team for longer. And they need to spend a lot of time kind of helping others ramp up and with their onboarding and all of that. They also spend a lot of time in meetings with other teams that want to potentially use their services. And so Backstage will allow you to turn your service and basically turn it into self-service. So people can go there, they can see the documentation, they can understand the service dependencies, who owns the service, and all of that. So this is really, really important and one of the, I would say, main capabilities that Backstage provides. You have dependency mapping. So all of this is configuration based, but basically you'll be able to see in basically a dependency map what services your service is connected to. And you also have clear ownership, which is very, very important in distributed organizations. You need to understand who owns that service. So if you have like specific feature request or an issue with a service, you need to understand who owns that service. Second category here is about tech docs. Who likes to write documentation? Okay, few people, that's good. I also like to write documentation. But it's very difficult it's very difficult to kind of make sure that documentation is written for every change that you make, right? And one of the things that Backstage actually allows you to have documentation together with your service, and it becomes what I like to call documentation as code, right? So this is something that becomes part of the process, right? I'm running some open source projects, and it's actually part of the PR review process is actually, do you have documentation for the feature that you are adding or not, right? If not, PR is not going through, okay? And so this is something that you can get built into your process, into your teams. And one of the features that I actually like on Tech Docs, and Tech Docs in Backstage is basically using it uses MKDocs, which is like an open source project as well. And basically, this allows community contributions as well. So you can easily just click the edit page button. This uses basically GitHub or GitLab or whatever, wherever your code is stored, and that goes into a PR, and you can basically, it's just code, becomes code, right? So it's really, really effective, and it's something that developers are used to basically using in their daily lives. Third category here is about plugins, and plugins bring the like extensibility capabilities into Backstage. This is how you bring information into Backstage. A lot of people these days are using Backstage as like the central repo for all the information and all the knowledge about all the different services that you are using, and I'll show you a demo on that as well. So you'll be able to centralize all relevant information, and there are, I don't know, like tens of plugins that you can use, like integrations with Kubernetes, AWS, Azure, PagerDuty, and many other tools that you might be using. And all of this is configuration based. And there are a few bits that you need to go into the code and make some changes, but this is becoming actually like 100% configuration based, so you don't need to change anything in the code. And then last but not least, it's the scaffolder, which is like a project template scaffolder, which allows you, and this is typically leveraged by platform teams and SRE teams, that will allow you to basically create a software project templates. And you'll be able not only to kind of in a single click create like or enforce standards and best practices by kind of scaffolding a project or project files into GitHub or GitLab or Azure DevOps, whatever you want. But you will also be able to automate some manual tasks. And I'll show you how you can do that. But basically, you'll be able to automate some manual tasks outside of Backstage, right? And better than kind of going through slides is actually to show you how it works. So let me just open Backstage. So this is basically a Backstage app. I'll just increase the size so you can see it. A Backstage app is actually just a React application, right? So you have the app, which is like a React application, and then you have the backend, which is a Node.js backend service. And basically, these two work together. The backend typically has like all the backend services that manage all the integrations and integrations with the plugins. And on the React side, basically you have the UI that you will be able to use. As I said, all of this is configuration based. So I have a bunch of entities here. So this is running on my machine, so I haven't deployed it anywhere. So it's running on a Docker container on my machine. And basically, all of this is configuration-based, YAML. So for anyone that is used to Kubernetes, you'll have all this information here. Don't worry about the integration keys and all that stuff because this is going away. So even if it's being recorded, don't worry about that. Basically, the way that we do all the integrations and the plugins is through annotations here. And this is how you configure the integration with PagerDuty, for instance. And this was all done automatically, and I'll show you in a second how to do that. And yeah, let's go to Backstage. If you have any questions, then I can show you how it works. But basically, this is Backstage, just a very like basic Backstage application, and have a bunch of services here that come from those entities that you see on the YAML configuration. If I open one of them, like it adds component that I have here, you will see that I have like the source. I can just go directly to the source. I can go directly to the tech docs. I have all the dependencies between services here, and just take into consideration that this is a demo, so there are not a lot of information here at this point in time. I can see if there is any kind of relation with different components, and this is the PagerDuty integration as well. You can see all the information here. Let me quickly show you how you leverage the scaffolder. I'll try to show multiple things at the same time. The scaffolder to bring the project template into GitHub, create automations, and then you will see all the dependencies and a bunch of stuff that was created automatically. I have a simple like TypeScript REST API template that I provide here as a template. I'll just start this one. From here, I'll be able to provide service name, description. In this case, because I will automate the creation of a PagerDuty service, I'll have an escalation policy and something around like alert grouping, which will allow me to reduce the number of incidents that are created by grouping them by using AI. And all of this comes, once again, from a template, right? So if you go here, I'll specify this by using a YAML file, and you will see that I'm collecting some properties, service name, the description, the escalation policy, and the alert grouping. The same ones that you saw on the form are basically defined here. I provide things like UI options that will allow me to provide a drop-down instead of like regular text. I'm also able to, in this case, it's also a drop-down, but basically I'll use this information to then execute a few steps. And what I'll be doing here is creating a PagerDuty service, okay, which actually uses a custom scaffolder action that we provide through the PagerDuty plugin. So we'll create a service on the PagerDuty side. Then we'll grab the template that we have defined in the content folder that you see here, basically here. We will look into the catalog info file and replace a few values that come from the previous step that we collected information on, the name, and the service ID comes from this step of creating the PagerDuty service and the integration key as well. So basically, I'll automate part of this by by replacing values on this catalog info file. And then I'll publish the project into GitHub, and then I'll register it in Backstage once again. So let me do this for you. So Cloud Native Lisbon example. Okay, I'll give a description. Cloud Native Lisbon Meetup example. I'll basically select the escalation policy, and this actually comes from PagerDuty, my account from PagerDuty. So I'll select one of the services, doesn't really matter, one of the escalation policies, and then I'll select intelligent grouping because it's recommended. And this also comes from the PagerDuty integration. Click review, click create, and in one step, you don't need to look into the logs, but basically in one step, just provide a few just simple information, and in one step, I'll have a few things. So first of all, I'll have this new service created in PagerDuty, okay, and with the integration to Backstage created automatically. And if I go into Backstage, I will see that I have the service and I have the PagerDuty integration created here. And I'll just test this one, create a new incident. I'll say test incident, doesn't really matter. Trigger an incident, and we will see that we have a new incident created. And if I refresh this, we have an incident created, and getting the call, right? So basically, the idea is that in a single step we automated all of this process. At the same time, we also have the connection to directly from here go and view source, right? So this is the TypeScript project that I provided as an example. So I can basically all the changes that I make here are propagated automatically to Backstage. And once again, this is something that my company provides as like best practices and standards and all of that. I can also have access to the tech docs, which is something that currently and typically you don't see that loading, that kind of loading animation, but in this case, I'm building it as on the fly on my Docker container. And so this is just an example documentation that I provide as well as part of the template. And I also have other things as part of this automation, like the fact that I have a plugin for CI/CD, which basically goes and grabs information from GitHub Actions automatically. I merge the code, there is an initial commit message, and the only thing I needed to do is to have like a GitHub Actions plugin configured. I also have information about like my API definition. So if I go into my API, because I'm actually providing this is a template for an API, I can see like the open API documentation file that I can just have access to in my project, which will allow developers that want to use my service to actually go and understand how they can use the API. Everything in a single location, right? And so this is something that I try to do a demo that shows like the power of all the things that I mentioned, and so this is this is basically it, and this is just some like basic integrations, some of the plugins that we have for Backstage, but we have a lot more, right? So I don't know if you have any questions on this one, if that kind of piqued your interest or not. Yeah, go ahead.
Is that info public, just so we can see?
It's not, but I'll publish it. Yeah, and I'll share the link later. Yeah, but do you have anything that you want to see? How I can show you now. Yeah, we use it at PagerDuty. So we have been using it at PagerDuty for probably 2 years or so. And one of the main things that kind of led us to start using Backstage was actually the project templates, because we had project templates internally, but they were kind of spread across different teams. And this actually allows us to have like one place that we go to, and people can. So if your team is kind of building or working with a new language or new technology, or wants to make a change to a template, they can also do that, right? So they can propose changes and publish new templates. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Like what, so you can implement stuff like naming convention,
Mhm.
like that. It's possible.
Yeah, you can do that. But you have two ways. So I don't have it specified here on the template, but basically on the on the input here, basically you can specify you can use regular expressions. You can also use like the backend services that you can provide as part of a plugin, that you can basically call a service, run a validation, and just verify. Yeah. You can do that. Yeah. Thank you.
Nice presentation. So looking at from my addition, it's more a question around the underlying technology more than this specific line, right? But
Yeah.
how do you handle tenancy or our like here, right? Let's say you have a very large team or multiple teams,
Yeah.
right? Do you have that capability? to actually-
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, not by default, but basically Backstage has this RBAC capability that you can enable, but by default it's disabled, right? And the reason why it's disabled is because there are several plugins that don't implement RBAC, right? And so just to make sure that they don't break stuff for people, they make it like an opt-in thing. So you can enable it, and you just need to make sure that the plugins are actually working or supporting RBAC, which is something that so you have like Backstage. So Red Hat released a few months ago, released the like their own version that they maintain of Backstage. They call it, I don't know if it's developer portal or something like that, it's developer something. And basically they kind of have a few things that they run as part of the pipeline to validate things like, do you support RBAC or not? If not, you will not be able to publish the plugin to their marketplace, right? So there are a few things, and Red Hat is very active actually on the Backstage side of things, like the open source version of it. And they are one of the main contributors as well. And they want to bring some of these capabilities that they run that make it like enterprise ready to the community. But yeah, it's kind of they're doing it slowly.
And as a follow-up to that, and so you're using this, right? You're using
Yeah.
Backstage. Are you actually, do you ever found that need to have RBAC, or you are freely using that across all the teams?
Yeah, so it's something that we at PagerDuty, we don't have RBAC at this point in time. It's something that we would like to enforce, but we haven't found like we didn't have problems so far with it, right? But it's something that I would say, yeah, it would be a good practice to actually do that. One of the reasons why we don't use it is because some of the plugins that we use don't support RBAC at this point in time. So, but yeah, something that's in our internal roadmap to support. You have a question?
So all these templating capabilities, I see the example, but then what is actually beyond this? There's an implementation somewhere.
Yeah.
Where does it go?
Yeah, so all of this is provided. Well, all of this is provided by the Backstage folks. There are a few things, and let me try to show you here. So the escalation policy ID. Yeah, this one, basically I'm using the custom component, right? So it's like a custom React component that is provided by a company called Brody, also one of the main contributors to Backstage. And they basically have this custom component that they provide. So in this case, I wanted to have a component that's like a dropdown that allows me to call a backend service and just retrieve data and show in the front end. So in this case, I had to use a custom component. So this is like a custom extension that you need to configure on your backends, basically. So for this specific thing, I had to make changes to the code of Backstage
You're
itself.
modifying.
Yes. Exactly. So even for, I can show you, even for the PagerDuty plugin, I have a PagerDuty backend plugin, but then I need to create a route on the backend. So I actually need to change the code currently because the configuration for backend services is not yet 100% configuration based. So it's not just a YAML file. It's something that is a work in progress from Backstage and should be there really soon. But once again, we need to make sure that all the plugins support this, and that's one of the main challenges. So there are a few things that you need to go into the code and make changes. Yeah.
It takes a very short amount of time to get a demo working.
Yeah.
And that's really nice, but
All
to really
the
get something that is useful, it takes forever. And honestly, if you don't have people that know TypeScript,
Yeah.
it's just a big word.
Yeah, definitely.
And in my team, for example, no one knows TypeScript. We do know a lot of other programming languages, but we would like to, implement something that templates and it could be like deployed anywhere else.
Yeah.
And just do it through configuration, but it was just not possible. So
Yeah.
it
Definitely. We had the same challenge we have the same challenge at PagerDuty actually, because our SRE team is the team that maintains Backstage and they make like all the changes to the product. And well, they are folks from like they are SREs, right? So they don't necessarily know how to write code. TypeScript is not a language that they are familiar with, or React, right? And so this is one of the main challenges there. And that's one of the reasons why the Backstage folks are kind of trying to move away as much as possible from this and making sure that configurations for all the plugins are 100% YAML-based configuration. And that's right. And they have actually showed in KubeCon Chicago back in November, they actually showed that actually working. So you just make a change in the YAML file, save the file, the plugin shows or goes away or updates according to the changes they made. So hopefully, so KubeCon Europe is taking place next week in Paris. So hopefully they will show something new. Yeah, I think you had a question as well. Yeah, basically.
So
Yeah.
it's fully customizable.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah, you can basically. Yeah, you can even create your own plugins. I have one customer that actually implemented a change on the PagerDuty plugin. That basically so currently on the PagerDuty plugin, we are just kind of reading data from PagerDuty, but they wanted to have something that was capable of connecting to PagerDuty webhooks and receive information to make it like real time in something that we don't support. So basically cloned our project, built like all the event-based, because Backstage has these event-based capability as well. So he built a bunch of new stuff and he said, well, this is the code that I'm using. Feel free to use it and bring this feature to Backstage, to the plugin. So you can create your own stuff. You don't need to make it public. It's just an NPM package. Yeah, I can show you. So if you go to Backstage, Backstage.io, you go into plugins, and so these are the ones that are basically core features from Backstage. But then you have like a bunch of different plugins. Some are provided by companies that build the products themselves. Others are built by the community and maintained by the community. In our case, we basically took ownership of our plugin in November. It was initially built by the guys from Backstage, but yeah, it was getting a lot of attention. It was like one of the top 5 plugins. And so they had to, they asked us if we could maintain it. So it was Circle CI. We had yeah, I don't remember, but basically we were like 5 companies that basically took ownership by them. Yeah, and yeah, there are a lot of integrations here for probably there are integration for the software that you are using. If not, if they provide the REST API, you can build the integration yourself. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay, drinks. Thank you so much, guys.